North Korea is considered one of the most isolated and closed-off countries in the entire world. Many of us are aware of the strange laws its leader has established to completely isolate its people from the world. North Korea is a country without internet, satellite channels, or international newspapers. There is no source from which citizens can obtain any information other than the state-run television, which consists of only 3 channels, all subject to government censorship. This is in addition to the regime's notorious reputation for human rights violations, which has made the country an almost universally unwelcome ally. And of course, we cannot forget the North Korean leader's obsession with manufacturing and developing nuclear weapons, which has been the primary reason for US-imposed sanctions on the North Korean economy. Despite this, we see the leader's private jets and presidential trains, which are the epitome of luxury and sophistication, not to mention the factories, schools, and hospitals built by the state. This begs the question, where does this country get its money from? Welcome. In this episode, we will talk about North Korea. Where does the money come from? And before we begin, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you receive our videos as soon as they're published. First, to understand where North Korea gets its money, we must understand that the North Korean state employs a specific approach in its economic policy called a command economy or communist economy. This system means the government is the primary controller of the economy. It determines which factories are built, which goods are produced, and of course, it is the sole controller of the prices of these goods. This system also prevents any opportunities for citizens to invest in their own country, meaning no one can start a project or establish a company except the government, or specific individuals subordinate to the regime. This means that all factories and companies in the country are owned by the state itself. The entire population works for the government, and the returns from any investment go directly to the state treasury. Now, after understanding the country's economic policy, let's return to the same question. So, sir, where does the North Korean government get the money to build these factories and projects? And the more important question, are these projects the state's only source of income, or not? One of the most astonishing methods, one you'd hardly imagine being an income source for any country, is the policy of negotiation. Given that we're talking about one of the world's most economically sanctioned countries, we should expect out-of-the-box ideas. Before the establishment of North Korea under its modern name, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, in 1948, the Korean peninsula was occupied by the Japanese Empire. However, after Japan's defeat in World War II, the Korean peninsula was divided into 2 parts, a northern part under Soviet administration and a southern part under US administration. Since then, the Soviet Union secretly trained a group of young Koreans to form a future government aligned with their vision for ruling the Korean state. At the forefront of these youths was the Korean leader Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea. After the country's establishment, Kim Il-sung thought about liberating himself from dependence on the Soviet system. Unfortunately, the country had no source of income at the time. Its economy was based on very primitive agriculture and fishing. It was here that the idea of negotiation emerged for Kim. The North Korean leader decided to play with countries coveting control over his nation from behind the scenes. He cleverly decided to leave the door open for these countries to provide aid to North Korea, thereby prompting them to compete in sending aid in hopes of gaining influence. The more these countries coveted influence, the more aid they would send. Moreover, other countries would offer aid to prevent North Korea from aligning with a particular rival. Indeed, this policy succeeded as one of the state's initial sources of income, and, at times, served as an effective pressure tool for North Korea to push the United States to ease economic sanctions. At the beginning of the episode, we discussed the North Korean economic system and mentioned that the state controls the types of products its factories produce. The primary goal of this control is the North Korean state's desire to export these goods. North Korean society is extremely poor, with per capita income not exceeding $2,000 per year. To put this into perspective, in 2018, over 43% of the total population suffered from malnutrition. The reason for this is that the state directs most of its productive capacity toward exports of clothing, coal, food products, and military equipment, which represent more than half of the entire North Korean economy's GDP. This raises another question: what is so special about North Korean goods that countries import them? The answer begins with identifying which countries import these goods in the first place. China is by far the largest importer of North Korean goods, accounting for 80% of total North Korean exports. Looking at China's strong economy, there seems to be no justification for importing these goods. Nevertheless, China continues to import them as a means of exerting control over the region and, at the same time, reducing U.S. influence. The Masikryong ski resort is one of the most intriguing North Korean projects recently. The decision to build a luxurious ski resort in a country where half its population suffers from food shortages is extremely strange. However, once you understand the class structure of North Korean society, you'll realize the purpose of building this resort and other luxury restaurants and stores selling goods priced far beyond the average annual income of an ordinary North Korean citizen. North Korean society is divided into two main groups. The first is the upper class, consisting of the ruling family and high-ranking state officials. This class is excessively wealthy. To win their favor and simultaneously increase state revenue, the North Korean leader creates resorts like Masikryong. In doing so, he kills two birds with one stone, providing the luxurious lifestyle that pleases the upper class and increasing their support and loyalty to him. The second group, to which most North Korean citizens belong, is largely marginalized. Their utmost ambitions are securing food and covering educational expenses. Consequently, the state has no inclination to create projects serving this class because, simply put, this class will not generate profits for the state treasury. Offices 35, 38, and 39, also known as third-floor offices, are among the worst reputed economic departments globally. The primary reason for this notoriety is the methods they employ to generate profit. These offices, which are state-affiliated, are accused of drug trafficking, counterfeiting dollars, hacking bank accounts, stealing and trading cryptocurrencies. The bigger issue is that these crimes are encouraged by the North Korean regime itself. Simply put, these offices are an integral part of the North Korean economy. Without them, the sources of foreign currency that the regime lavishly spends on luxury would significantly diminish. Each of these three offices is responsible for specific tasks in these suspicious operations. Office 35 consists of intelligence officers whose mission is to gather preliminary information about operations carried out by the other offices and to secure these operations so the North Korean regime does not appear directly involved. Office 38 plays the role of public relations, managing the regime's companies and factories inside and outside North Korea. This office serves as the regime's legal facade. Office 39 is the executor of all operations, including arms and drug trafficking, currency counterfeiting, and other suspicious activities. One of the worst methods North Korea uses to obtain money is human trafficking, or, you could say, a modern form of slave trade. The North Korean regime forces all citizens to work for the state without providing them with any rights or basic needs. The salaries the government pays its people are meager, barely covering their food, housing, and clothing needs. Despite this, the regime did not stop there. It decided to export its citizens to other countries to benefit from their labor capacity. Every year, the North Korean regime sends thousands of workers to countries like China and Russia, where they work under forced labor conditions that are, at best, inhumane. A 2015 United Nations report stated that nearly 100,000 workers were sent to these countries to work. The salaries for these workers are paid directly by the governments importing the labor to the North Korean government, not to the workers themselves. The government, in turn, gives the workers a pittance of their salaries and keeps the rest. So today, we talked about North Korea. Where does the money come from? What would you like us to talk about in future videos? Write to us in the comments. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and share. For those seeing us for the first time, subscribe and turn on notifications so you receive our videos as soon as they're published. See you in the next episode.